I thought that I would share my thoughts on ethnicity. And this is coming on the heels of a DNA analysis that my wife and I did, that dug into our DNA to understand where our roots are around the world. And it was really a cool experience, very interesting experience to go through. We used the website Ancestry.com, and this is not a commercial for Ancestry.com, so I'm not getting paid by them. And I don't know any of the other websites out there. Maybe there's some others that are way more robust, but I was very, very pleased with the results that we got back in terms of the depth of information that they provided. You wanted more, you wanted even more depth, but I mean, what they did provide was still very, very, very interesting. Anyway, my wife and I did that test, and it caused a lot of conversation in our families, about backgrounds and where people came from, and are we this and are we that, and just a lot of conversations. And to this day, we're still having those conversations, and that's why I say it was a really, really interesting, cool thing to go through. But it causes me to wonder. It causes me to ask myself the question, does any of it matter? At the end of the day, does any of it really, really matter? And I think that there was a point in time in my life where I would have said, hell yes, it matters. It absolutely matters. That's your history. That's your background. Those are your roots. I would have been on this far end of the spectrum saying, yes, it does matter. And if you don't recognize it, then you are basically discounting me as a person, And don't get me wrong, I haven't lost that train of thought. I mean, I do think it matters, but I also think it doesn't matter. I think that where I'm at right now is I believe in both, and I'm not trying to be on the fence, and I'm not trying to, not make waves or whatever, but I really do feel like I'm right in the middle. I really am. I mean, I think that on one hand, it does matter, right? Because yes, it's your roots, it's where you came from. I mean, it's your history, but it also sort of it relates to the customs that you have at home, the languages that you speak, the colors that we come in, and it's certainly sort of it has to do with who we are culturally. Who we are culturally, is oftentimes based on our ethnicities. Not always, but oftentimes it is. And that's where I start to think on the flip side that it isn't based off our ethnicity. It's not based off of DNA, but I mean, the culture that we grow up with is based on a whole lot of external stuff, and that's really who we are, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that it does matter, but I also think it doesn't matter. I think a perfect example. Here's a perfect example, I think, that illustrates the point on both sides. One, let's talk. Well, the example is with adoptees, and I know a few Korean adoptees who are Korean ethnically, and were adopted by U.S. parents. And so parents in the U.S. who were not Korean and, didn't have that cultural background. And so they grew up here in the U.S. oftentimes without Korean language, without Korean food, without Korean culture. Sometimes the parents will make an effort to build some of that in, and there's some really cool Korean culture camps out there for adoptees. But even those who didn't go through that experience, they are they're learning about their background and their culture and their heritage. Usually as they get older, they start to get curious, and so they start to learn about it. But on the front end, a family from a different ethnic background decided to love a child regardless of what background they were from, you know? And I've got a lot of respect for that. I think that that's amazing. I really do. I think that that's absolutely amazing. If you're going to cross over your own cultural ethnic lines to love a child from another ethnic background, wow. I think that that's absolutely incredible. There are those people who I think who criticize that, and I don't know where that's coming from. I mean, if someone's going to love a child, let them love a child. I don't care what background they're from. I really do think that's amazing. Now, and so in that case, it doesn't matter, right? But as the child ages, and if they go through a culture camp or not, usually they start to become curious about their own roots, their own background. And oftentimes they do some digging and they want to find out, about their birth parents, about their culture. They start getting into the Korean foods and things like that, which I think is also awesome, because that's recognizing their ethnic background, the DNA, right? That's recognizing who they are as a person in terms of what genetically makes them up. I think that that's also awesome. That's like a perfect example, I think, of where it doesn't matter because love trumps all, right? As grandiose as that is. But on the flip side, it does matter because it really does make who we are. I mean, another example. There was I'm not gonna call the guy out. I'm not gonna call him out by name, but some people may remember years ago there was a professor who claimed to be Native American, and they didn't have any of these DNA tests back then, but they did some. I think one of the papers did this investigation into his history and really found out that he probably doesn't have any Native American blood in his DNA. So on one hand, in his genetic makeup, so on one hand it's like, well, okay, again, does it matter? I mean, if we're saying that it doesn't matter, then that shouldn't matter, right? Maybe he grew up in an Indian household, but I don't think he did grow up in a Native household. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know the guy's history, but I always found it a bit odd, though, for someone to claim an ethnic background that wasn't theirs. There's nothing wrong with being respectful and having a reverence for a particular culture. There's nothing wrong with that. But man, I don't know, something feels off, something feels wrong about claiming an ethnic background that's not yours. And so that's another case where ethnicity does matter. So anyway, man, I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. Like I said, we got our DNA analysis test results back, and it's just kind of fresh in my mind. All of this information around ethnicity, and I morph and change over the years. So who knows? Maybe I'll flip and think something different 5 years from now. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. So anyway, with that, my friends, my people, continue to stay rooted 90 degrees to the earth. One love.